Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah. How's everyone doing? Welcome to the last live show of the 2022 year, put on by yours truly. And I see we've got some people already in the chat. How did everyone enjoy their holidays this weekend? This past week with friends, families, and fools. Yeah, I know. I've got those two in my family. First and foremost, a couple days left before we close out Academy 3.0. Just want to say that all of the information below, our contact information for those who are interested in signing up before the year changes over. There's the emails, there's the phone number, there's a text number. I definitely don't really want to be dealing with issues come January the 1st, 2nd, 3rd. But I know that some of you out there are last minute shoppers, so I get it. That's cool. But in the meantime, while we've been waiting around for the holiday season to approach, interesting enough, I'm sure you guys already saw this. The president is about to sign this $1.7 trillion spending package. And so that's the topic that's going around, the conversation I want to have today with those folks out there. Believe it or not, I actually, I was supposed to do this on LinkedIn. I took LinkedIn off because I believe that the people that you're going to want to reach, the people that you're going to want to contact with are on LinkedIn. So I'd rather keep it here on my channel so that I can give all of you unfair advantage against those persons that you're going to be competing against. And so that's always been my promise to those of you who subscribe to me, who followed me, who have stuck with me this whole time. So this is only streaming on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So welcome some, welcome all. This is going to be a great conversation today. I'm really excited. Any day now, I think the president's going to sign in this package. Congress approved it. The House approved it. So it's happening. I don't like to talk about things that are, potentially happening. I want to talk about things that are happening because those are the things that affect us. 43 people watching. Make sure you all hit the like button, right? Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you get your notifications turned on because come New Year, we'll be doing more of the same. So a couple things, like I said, let me just go ahead and see who's out here. Get some shout outs real quick. My man Gilbert says, I can always use an unfair advantage. I love it. Maria says, again, as always, tell us who you are. Tell us where you're from. Give me your city. Tell me what it is that you do. So that way, as we're having these conversations, I can use real life examples, real life people. And because I do continue to stream this, even after this session goes live, there are going to be people watching it that may connect with you as well. So let me know who you are. Tell me your industry. Tell me what city you rep. And then, we'll jump into this appropriations bill and see. Now, something else that I did differently, right? And you'll probably notice my title. I said, how can solopreneurs take advantage? That was intentional. The reason why I did that is because I understand, first of all, I'm not delusional. So I understand that the majority of people out there have an LLC or have a corporation or are forming their LLC or corporation, and you're the only business person. You're the only employee, if you have any employees, right? So when you look at statistically, and I was reading this morning, the majority of small businesses, there's only about, in fact, let me just pull that up for you. Pull it up real quick. All right, doing that, make sure you put in there who you are, what sector you're in, what city. Let me pull up these stats real quick. I just want to show folks. All right. Any questions? By the way, these sessions are always open for questions. So if you have any questions about anything that we're talking about, even if it's not related to this topic, feel free to ask. Well, I can't find my stat. All right. Here's a chart I could show on the screen. Essentially, it says in 2022, the number of small businesses in America reached 33 million small businesses, making up nearly all 99.9% of U.S. total businesses. The increased number of small businesses in the U.S. 2022 represented a sustained 2% increase. Bottom line, it says a small business administration defined as fewer than 500 employees. Reports show that there are around 27 million small businesses that do not hire any employees. So out of 32 million, 27 million do not have employees. 5 million have fewer than 20 employees. And then 650,000 have 500 or more employees. So again, I know I'm speaking to the majority of folks out there that do not have employees or have one or less employee, right? So that's the majority of us out there. So again, we're dealing with reality here. And why did I say this specifically for solopreneurs? Because if you're a one-man band, if you're a one-man show, right, and you're trying to figure out like, hey, how do I do this? How do I make this work for me? That's the folks that I want to talk to today. Now, obviously, we're going to go through this spinning package, not in great detail, but we're going to go over and highlight some of the areas that I think are important, particularly those that apply to you and I out there. But I also want to give you somewhat of a step-by-step guide, right? A roadmap that I hope for the 49 people out here that are interested, that you're taking notes. I always keep my yellow notepad by me. I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds to go get you a notepad, take notes, because I actually wrote down like a game plan that I'm hoping that you follow. So let me see who's out here today, right? Let's see who we got. And by the way, I rep my Ostabu gear, right? And so we're going to be talking about that today. Get the likes up. Tam, what's up? All right. Teddy Jackson, Chicago Painting. Billy P, Chicagoland, Global Resources, lesser of non-residential real estate asset manager. Detroit Logistics, Flatbed Trucking. Tam, 50/50 Geek, Cloud, DevSecOps. Bridget Bonita, what's up? Bridget Bonita. All right. Columbia, Missouri, Biodegradables. Welcome. Tommy says, well, so will 3.0 still work come the new year? Yes, Tommy, it's going to work. We're just not accepting new registrations. We never disable any of our programs. We just choose not to allow more people to come in. Justin, St. Louis, Missouri, I'm open to selling government anything, looking for a niche. Good stuff, Justin. Louis, government contracts consultant based in Orlando, Florida. Nice to meet you. Elevation, Allah, 1.7 trillion legislation provides $7 billion for non-defense discretionary, $88 billion for defense funding. I like it. And that's good elevation, and that's like the highlight reel, which is perfect. However, right, what you want to have to remember, and I'm actually, look, I love when people provide insight and context, and this is good. So let me tell you what you missed in that. Even though it says 70, right, we're all thinking about the $858 billion in defense funding. We do work with agencies that are non-defense agencies. So even within that 700 billion, there's a lot of opportunities for people like me. So one example of that would be Department of Interior. They're non-defense funding, right? So there are agencies out there that are non-defense agencies like Department of Interiors that I do a lot of business with, and they're still in that $772 billion. So really, our number is going to be closer to $1 trillion when it's all said and done of opportunity. I know it's mind-blowing, right? Chris Moore, Integrity LED, commercial industrial lighting, external applications. Nice to meet you, Chris. Where are you out of? Stera Clean, currently finding my leads. I've also been looking for clients who retain my consulting services and commission. I love it. Chris is located in San Antonio, Texas, deliver lighting nationwide 2 to 4 days. Nice. Sounds like you should hook up with Brian Amster, Chris. Curtis, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Go Blue, just starting medical supplies agency, Homeland Security. Sweet. Go Gators. I love it. Tam says, if you don't own a business, buy one. Very true. That's a whole nother conversation, Tam. DeAfrica Alexander have adult family homes and group homes. Nice. Nashville, we're mobile or on-site occupational DOT testing service. One woman show, laugh out loud. I love it. Congratulations. ViCam project management. Never heard of that before, but that's cool. All right, Neil, Miami Fort Lauderdale, veteran looking to get a GovCon space, looking for a niche and mentor opportunity. Good stuff. All right, cool. All right, so let's jump into it. Because I have to, I'm trying to keep these things to 1 hour maximum. So we'll jump into it. And by the way, because Wednesdays, I like to talk to people, engage, I'm going to drop a link in here. Right. And if anybody wants to come up to the stage and participate in the conversation, here's a link in here as well. So we'll invite you up to the stage. So let's get into it today. I kind of already, the person laid some of the foundation we discussed, which is the $700 billion in non-defense funding, but then there's also $858 billion in defense funding, right? So that's the highlight reel, which is really cool. But I want to jump into, and again, this is the kind of what I mentioned to the person who made that comment earlier, right? Is there are agencies like this, which is Interior Environment and Related Services, all right? And so when we look at their particular budget, Department of Interior, which by the way, recently I had a student send me a message and said that he has an appointment with someone from the Department of Interior, right, that's reviewing his particular business so that he can provide them with, what is it? He sells like clothes and apparel, merch, and he does that. And he's looking, the first agency that's given him opportunity to present his stuff, and he's going through some sort of auditing process of his facilities, is the Department of Interior. So we cannot forget, right, some of these other agencies out there. So when we look at it, I pulled up a couple. I pulled up Department of Interior. I pulled up Homeland Security, Military Construction, Veterans Affairs, right? And so I bet you that all of these smart people probably like, what? What is he doing? Right? Yes, Department of Defense is the elephant in the room, and that's the obvious one. But look at some of these other places where they're spending money at that kind of go under the radar for people who are not students of this game, right? So, of course, yeah, everybody's going to target the Department of Defense, which is great. And, of course, I have them pulled up as well. But what about, oh, look at Tim. Thank you, Tim. Happy holidays. Look, Tam sent me $50 for the holidays. Whoop, whoop. Thank you, Tam. Appreciate you. Much love. Even though I wish we could be together and go take and have a drinks with those $50, I still appreciate it. So everybody give Tam a hug for that. She's so sweet. So going back to what we're discussing, what I want to do is I want to talk about how is it that, all right, Tam says Cape statement should be ready to go. All right, nice. So what I want to do is talk about a plan for solopreneurs out there and what you can do, right, to step up and start participating in 2023. And so the focus today is really going to be on those particular individuals, just because I think that, right, what I've learned is I've been talking at really high levels, and that's really, and so it takes Maria, my son Brandon, and others around me to help kind of bring me back down, right? And so for me, I said, okay, let's go back to, hey, what happens when people first started out, right? For what happens when people were first getting started, and like you didn't have your business, you didn't have your organization, you didn't have all the structure or infrastructure needed to actually do this at the big level. So I said, let's talk about today, right? How does somebody, like if I were starting off from scratch, right, and I had to do this, what would I do? Is that fair? That makes sense? And really, it goes back to, sometimes we call it consulting. Sometimes we're looking for teaming partners. Sometimes we're calling it the middleman strategy. But for me, I think that with this new package, because, when they have these things that come out, right, and it's all over the news and everybody knows about it, it's right. It kind of, if you take and you look at the government contract landscape, and if you have these companies that kind of been moseying along, right, and not really doing anything for a while, when something like this big package comes out, it's sort of a big deal, and it will reinvigorate those business owners who once did government contracts that may not be doing them anymore. It'll like kind of open up their eyes again, and they're going to be turning around looking for, okay, where's the opportunity at? Because given what's happening with a potential looming recession, and inflation and all this other stuff and supply chain, people are looking for opportunities, right? And so what's happening with the car, they said there's going to be a car dealership crisis and car dealerships going out of business, and real estate might go down. So people are going to be looking for opportunities, and this whole $1.7 trillion package might be just the thing that you can take to a potential client and get them to sign the deal and get them to be your partner. And so I think that this is a great time for those people out there, because given everything else is almost, it's like kind of crashing and burning, right? Or at least they're describing it that way. I don't think things are crashing and burning, but if you turn on the news or you turn on any of the TV, that's the way that they're describing what's happening out in the marketplace. I happen to see something different, but that's because I'm on the other side of the fence, right? I'm serving the government. I'm serving this particular marketplace that's here. So guess what? They just dumped $1.7 trillion in my marketplace. So and again, I chose to do this back in 2008, right? When I got started, because I didn't want to be faced with, right, what's happening to people out here. So again, the rental market is slowing up. So what does that mean? Let's start off with something very simple. So for me, right, what I would do if I were doing this all over again, if I had to start with zero and I had no money, right, and I had to do this, I had no business, no money, no resources, we're going to walk you through what I would do. So the first thing I would do is I would come here to DSBS, right, the SBA.gov, and I would look for companies who have expired SAM registrations, companies who have old or outdated profiles, companies who have expired certifications. This is the first place I would start. So I'd start here and I'd look for companies that maybe in the past they were really strong, and for some reason or not, right, maybe in the last 5 years, they haven't had much activity. And so sometimes what happens is the person who was in charge left, or maybe, it's funny because I just had someone tell me that recently that they no longer do government contracts because the person who handled that for them has since retired. And so I see that happens a lot with business owners is they've got one person, right? You think about all these businesses, but they really still have one main person that's running this particular division, or who's leading the charge on this, or who's maybe helping them find opportunities. And so when that person leaves or retires or moves to a different entity, they don't have anyone else kind of handling this for them. So for me, I would start right here, right? And I'd look for potential companies that were, and because I'm in construction, I would pick construction, but some people will pick IT because it's a bigger marketplace. Some people might pick cybersecurity because that's a hot topic. Some people might pick companies that are IT firms because they're thinking about, right, AI, artificial intelligence, or robotics, or, DevSecOps. But the point being, you want to start with companies who have not done contracts recently. And why do we start in this database, right? Why do we start in this particular database? Because if the companies are in this database, that means that they registered to do business with the government. So they had intentions of doing business with the government. Whether they are currently doing it or not is a different story. But the fact that you don't get here, right, and you're not registered in this database by accident. So someone registered you in this database, right, because you had the idea or the thought or the wherewithal to know, like, okay, I want to pursue government contracting. Now, at some point, maybe it fell off and it stopped happening and that person left, or you tried it, it didn't work for you, or you weren't successful. But if they're in this database, they wanted to do government contracting. That makes sense? So for me, this is the first place I would start, right? I start right here and I would look for expired SAM registrations, old, outdated, or expired certs. That's the first thing. All right. I'll put this on the screen. Maria's got it up there. So that's the first thing that I would do. Now, number two. Now, once you identify some companies in here, right? Then the next thing that we want to do is, I'll pull it up. Right. Is I would go right here to FPDS.gov and I'd find out, right, when is the last time they actually had contracts and what type of contracts did they win. So I go into FPDS or USA Spending or GovTribe. There's 3 sources you could choose. And I would cross-reference to see if they've won any contracts in the past or the present. And what you're looking for, you want to look for what the government calls recent and relevant contract opportunities. Except in your case, you're looking for relevant but not recent opportunities. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I want to make sure everybody follows me here, right? Because I don't want to go too fast. I want to make sure everybody follows me. So we're going to find out if, in fact, we're going to identify companies, right, with expired SAM registrations, outdated profiles, or expired certs. And then once we finish, we're going to cross-reference to see if, in fact, they have any contracts. If you're just joining us today, we're talking about how solopreneurs can take advantage of the new $1.7 trillion Omnibus package. And so, again, we're going to talk about the package later on, but these are some of the first things that I would do, right? Again, if I started over from zero with no money, no contacts, this is exactly what I would do. So again, the majority, 99.9% of businesses out there are small businesses. All right, so now we want to look for relevant contract opportunities. We want to cross-reference it here. Now, at that point, right, now you've seen, okay, you've got these companies, they're expired, they're outdated. You've checked up their contracts, type of contract they've done. And so again, from here, right, we can now, based on that information, look up contract opportunities. Let's look up who are the agencies that buy their services. So go back, right? And we've done this in the past. Let me pull it up. Let me go back. All right, so now, once we've got the information on their contracts, then we want to look at their sector. And we want to identify, right? So here, I just pull up USA Spending, but I'll go back to FPDS because I'm just a fan of FPDS. Some people like USA Spending. But here, if we look here on the left-hand side, let me make this bigger. All right. You see this says top 10 contract agency names: Department of Army, Public Building Services, Navy, Air Force, Veteran Affairs, State Department, Institute of Health, Park Services, NASA, Coast Guard. When you get in here, you'll see the contract offices: base Boston, base Miami, base Miami, base Miami, base New Orleans, right? So when you get into here, you'll see the actual buying offices. Now, at this point, believe it or not, right? Believe it or not, at this point, you actually have information that is valuable and that you can sell. Believe it or not, you have information that's now valuable that you can sell to people at this point, right? Why? Because people are not doing this for themselves. They're not doing it for this business. They're too busy trying to run the business, trying to pay the bills, trying to pay all the employees, trying to actually keep the business going and running. So you actually have some information that you can sell to them, right? Now, I'm not saying for you to sell that information, but at this point, just here, right? If you were to do the research for someone, come up with this list of the contracting agencies, come up with a list of the contracting offices, right? You now have a piece of information that you can provide real value to any of those businesses that you research in step number 1. Does that make sense? All right. So now, what happens next? We're going to keep moving. All right. Now, what I do from here is we research, right? We call this our buyers list. So we've got our buyers list of who's actually buying the services. So if I chose a company that does cybersecurity, or like Tam, she keeps that DevSecOps in my brain all the time. Or if we did someone that did like CMMC or artificial intelligence, and then we found out, okay, these are the types of contracts they do. These are the type of contracts that exist. These are the government's buyers who buys those services, right? Now you have a piece of information that you can take back to those companies that has some value for it. Now, we're not going to stop there, but this is a piece of information that, right, on its own has value for people. All right. So now let's go a step further. Right. So we listed here. All right. We looked at contracting office construction acquisition division. Right. So we got construction acquisition division. We listed base Miami, base office New Orleans. Right. So we listed out the actual contracting office, and notice the distinction between contracting agency and contracting office here. So you got the agency is Fish and Wildlife Service. The office is Construction Acquisition Division. What's the difference? The difference is the agency is what you're seeing at the top level. The office is where they actually are buying the services, buying the goods. So that's the office where you're going to be reaching out to them and coming up with a list of office names. And from the list of office names, you'll be able to find the office address, you'll be able to find points of contact, and you'll be able to find actual office name, office address, people to contact, website information, right? So you'll be able to start building data that is now intelligence that you can then use, right, when you're going to talk to these potential clients. Following? Are we following so far? 72 people watching. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you hit the like. All right. Making sense? Eric would now say MLOps, Cloud Ops, AI Ops. Okay. I will say that. MLOps, Cloud Ops, and AI Ops. I don't know what any of that stuff is, but because Tam said say it. So the first thing was the buyers list. The second thing was the office names, right? And then once you've got the contracting office names, then you could go out and find current contracts, past contracts, future contracts. At every step of the way, this is information that people will pay you for. I know this because this is the information that professional service companies build out this data to sell to businesses that have more money than time. And so they don't have the time to do this type of extensive research, but they know that they need this information to make intelligent decisions for their business. And so you, as a solopreneur, can take and do this research for free, as you see, gather this data, and then present this information to those companies on that first list. All right. Now, from there, let me show you an example. Right. All right. So what I did was, again, I'm using Department of Interior as an example. Department of Interior procurement opportunities. All right. And it says current year forecast of procurement opportunities. It takes me here to a GSA website. Now, remember, if you don't have money, you have to put in time. You got to put in sweat equity. That's the trade-off, right? If you don't have money, you got to put in your time. If you have time, then you can put your money in. So, but again, the example that I gave, we're starting off, no contacts, no money, solopreneur, right? Only thing we know is we've got this big old huge $1.7 trillion package. How do we take advantage? So now, on my list for one of my clients was Department of Interior. We gave that example, right? We already know here, we're going to pull this up later on, but we know that Department of Interior for 2023, they got $38 billion in regular appropriations, an increase of $800 million over fiscal 2022. Nice. Okay. It talks about where the areas are being spent money, and we'll get to that, but I just want to show you. So we're using Department of Interior example. So now what we're looking for is current contracts, past contracts, future contracts. Why do we need this information? Why is this information important? Right? So why do we need this information? Because when we're talking to people out here, we want to know that the government has a history of buying these things. We want to be able to have an intelligent conversation with someone. Again, this person could be your teaming partner. This person could be a consultant client. This person could be a prime contractor and then allow you to be a subcontractor. So the relationship, it doesn't really matter to me what that relationship looks like or how it basically pans out. What matters to me is that you demonstrate your knowledge, your expertise, and your understanding level of this particular market to get you to have that conversation, to get someone to even want to work with you. And that's my goal. That's my objective here, is to get you to demonstrate intelligence, expertise, and a full understanding and grasp of at least, again, you don't have to fully grasp government contracting, at least how to get this information, this data, so that you can take the next steps. Because I just need to get you in the door to having conversations with people and them be surprised by the vast amount of knowledge you have. And also that you did do your research and you pulled up data that people can use and they can do something with. And this information, again, you can't really just go buy this and it spits out a report because it's kind of scattered all over the place. There is no one single source that pulls all this up and puts it in one place for you to digest. I know there are certain softwares out there like Bloomberg and like GovWen that claim they do this, and they do a lot of it, but they don't do 100%. So I say that to say with confidence that if you were to do this, it's not as though they can go to a alternative and find the same information, because it doesn't exist. It really doesn't. There's no one place you can go and get this thing packaged. Well, we do it for you, but even still, it's not packed. We have people putting in man hours to do this for our students who are in our lifetime programs. So I just want to say that, because And yes, like Curtis says, always bring value, right? All right. So what's the best way to cipher out companies that have more money than time? We'll talk about that. Hold on. Someone said, yes, recession proof your skills in your company. I saw something earlier. Someone asked a question about. Okay. All right. Okay, cool. All right. So now we're going to look at opportunities coming up, right? And believe it or not, these forecasted opportunities, right, that are coming out, this is great information because once you realize, like, the person that you're talking to another end, right? We know their industry, we know their sector, we know the type of contracts they've done because we did our research. Now, when we're looking at the government's past history, because this is all public information, if we pull up the government's past contracts that they've awarded, then we'll be able to see, right, what were the requirements of some of those past contracts. If we look at the outstanding contracts, we'll be able to see who are some of the prime contractors working on them, right? If we look at future opportunities, we will see what's coming out and where we can find a foothold in the marketplace. So now, example, I had a conversation with a small business partner recently that graduated from small business to large business, and so they can no longer pursue small business opportunities. So when you get this information, then when you're having a conversation with someone, you'll be able to talk about all these things at a really high level. And you'll be able to say, hey, these are the requirements that they've had in the past on some opportunities. It looks like you do meet those requirements. These are future opportunities that they've got coming out that I think match up to what you do. But you won't know that until you start having a conversation. So here, again, sticking with DOI opportunities, we're looking at, so it gives you the location, the performance locations, it tells you what they do. And again, you can filter this, right? We can filter by NAICS code. 212-319. I just picked the random NAICS code, right? And you can filter by state, you can filter by contract type, right? So now you have a list of, again, this is forecast, but again, we could go in and we could do SAM. Oops. Sorry, wrong side. Six 5516. Great. Six 55116. Okay, cool. All right, and then so you can go in SAM and you can look up from here contracts that are outstanding, right? Using the same code, same areas. So now you have past contracts, current contracts, future contracts. Again, at any point, all of this information is extremely valuable to any of the customers that you research on the very first list. Right. Now, let's talk about, right, because we're looking at Department of Interior, right? And so we start mentioning earlier the contracting offices, right? So we've got the contracting, you have the agencies, and then you have the offices where they're actually spending the money. if we're looking at future opportunities, we can see if, in fact, and this is a summary of the budget, but you can look inside to see which one of these was funded, because every agency submitted to the government, right, their request for what they wanted funded, right? What was their wish list? And I didn't pull it up for Department of Interior, but I did pull it up on the Department of Defense. And so Department of Defense is 329 pages. Let me see where I pulled it up. Hold on. See if I pull where I put it. Oh, here we go. No, I didn't pull it. Did I pull it up? No. I thought I pulled this up. Okay. But here's an example. Army National Guard stress remediation caused by substances, 2 million for remediation and restoration advisory boards, 400 million increase, $40 million budget environmental restorations, Navy specifically, general program increase, 10 million. Where was it at? No, this is not what I'm looking for. Sorry, guys. I thought I pulled this up. See, I make mistakes too. I saw it. I guess I didn't pull it up in advance. But at the high level, right, without going into it, you just essentially the goal that they have on here is you can cross-reference what their products were that they had a wish list for, and then what they was approved in this defense bill. And so you can then look at the specific opportunities. And now, again, small unmanned aircraft systems, Apache block remain, payload systems, multi-sensors, cargo helicopters, sea mods. So all this stuff, if you're dealing with, for example, a manufacturer that makes components and parts that's related to this, and they haven't been doing this for a while, it may behoove them, right, to now talk to someone like yourself to figure out, okay, how do I get back into doing business with the government? Because now we see they're going to be putting money into these programs that were not previously funded or underfunded. And so now this is a great way to kind of reinvigorate the conversation about, hey, this might be a great time for your company to rehatch its government contracting division again. And so that's the point of the story, is that what I would do is I would call them up and I'd say, hey, my name is Daniel, and I was browsing federal opportunities. I noticed something that fits your past contracts. So you always want to lead with an opportunity. And then I would say, we'd like to jumpstart your federal business segment again because this opportunity looks perfect for you. It's $400,000 in Bespoke in Washington. It's a cleaning bid. Tam says 80 folks, 69 likes. Are you still in the IT, cyber, real estate investment space? Do you have anyone actively searching contracts online for you? Do you have a sales guy that works full time? Right? Are you aware of the new $1.7 trillion package that Congress just passed? Did you know that they approved $32 billion for agencies that buy your services? I know because I did my research on your company. You won a contract in 03, 05, 08, but then it stopped. What happened? Right? These are the kind of conversations that people right now will be open to having with someone who has done this level of research. These are the conversations that people are open to having with folks like you and I. They do not care what we look like. They do not care, right? If you're male or female, they don't care your sexual orientation, your sexual preference. If you can help them and you can provide value, right? And you can tie it to what just came out or what's coming down the pipeline. I can tell you right now, one of my clients, the CEO of this company, he's been thinking about, okay, Eric, we know that the money's coming. Do you know when it's coming? So now I can tell him that, hey, right, for us in particular, because we're looking here on the military construction veterans affairs, right? So again, we're not talking about, this is non-DOD stuff, but military construction veteran affairs, They got appropriations bill, $22 billion, $38 billion increase. The person that mentioned on here, they do housing. This is partly funded for housing military veterans. So this, again, everything does not fall in a defense budget. This particular budget provides housing for veterans. It provides infrastructure for facilities, includes military family housing, child development centers. What am I saying? If you don't do your research, if you don't understand these things, right, it's going to be difficult for you to figure out where the money's at. But I know this because why? I was on a call with an organization recently because the VA is one of my targets. Did you know that the VA is paying private organizations to build housing, to build clinics? I forgot the name of these clinics. They're like the outpatient centers that developers own the centers, and then they lease it back to the VA. That falls under this particular budget. So there are developers out here who are building these outpatient clinics that the government is funding. It's owned by the developer, and then the government gives them back a long-term lease on this facility. This falls under this particular appropriations, right? So again, there's people out here that are doing real estate. There's people out here that provide housing. And so for me, what I'm saying to you is that there's people even on this YouTube live that need your help if you're a solopreneur. So again, you just have to have the willingness to go out, find this information, and then find the people out here who express an interest at some point in wanting to get access to this information because they've got a business that's has the potential to really maximize these contracts. They just don't have a person to help them to facilitate that or what that looks like. And so for me, that's super, super, super important, right? So now, does that make sense? I know I keep checking in. Sometimes I know I speak fast. I go really fast. I tried not to do that today. I really wanted to walk through kind of a methodical approach to this because I keep noticing even myself, right? I used to go straight to Department of Defense packages. But then when you start looking around and seeing the Department of Defense is probably the hardest agency, the hardest entity to work with. So when you look at like other entities that are non-DOD, they're a whole lot easier for small businesses, for mom and pop companies to get their foothold in the door. Yes. Cool. Thomas says makes sense. Easy way to search document, Control F. That's correct. But we're not really searching through it. But yes, I mean, I use all of the control keys all the time. I'm going to put this back up on the screen for people who may have questions in the future. All right. Let me go through and ask questions. All right. So I said, what's the best way of ciphering out the company has more money than time? Oh, that's easy. Look for a company that has so for me in construction, I would look for a company that has high bonding and no contracts. Anybody that has high bonding without having contracts, they've got more money than time. What else? Marie says, bill data, find office name, number, and contact location. Correct. Any tips for working with approved sources that's listed on a DIBBS solicitation? I don't really, let me think of the question. What do you mean by that? Okay, so I'm thinking that we did a video on DIBBS with someone in the past. We've done 2 videos on DIBBS. If there's an approved source that's listed on there, have you not tried reaching out to them? Because DIBBS is a little bit different because you're providing equipment or components to like helicopters and planes and things like that. There may be only one source, and if there's only one source, depending upon how often the government orders that, what I would do if there's only one source in DIBBS, I would go back and see the history and see if in fact that particular company provided those materials to the government. So in DIBBS, you can go back and look at their history, find out who's selling that to the government. So did they provide that particular product the last time, or did a third-party supplier? If a third-party vendor has been providing that one source product to DLA, then it's free game. Like it's like you could basically jump in and you could be an alternative provider. Elevation says, how do you ensure that you'll get paid? So great question. So a couple things. Well, one is, like I said, at any point along this process, you can sell the information, right? So if you have something if you have the information available, you could just sell it to them, right? And so this question is kind of a loaded question, which I don't mind taking. So it depends on what are you trying to do. Do you want to be their teaming partner? Do you want to be their consultant? Do you want to be their subcontractor? It just depends on what is your end game. All I'm trying to show you is how do you provide value to someone without having anything, without spending any money, essentially, and just investing your time. So depending upon the relationship that you want to have, and it's funny, the reason why this came to me was because there was an episode, I forgot the name of the show, but I saw it like on TikTok. It was a show where Grant Cardone had to start over from zero. I think it's called Billionaires. What is that show? Let me see if I can find that show. Undercover Billionaire. It was the Undercover Billionaire show. And so it's funny, that's what sparked this conversation, right? So on the Undercover Billionaire show, there was a scene that someone, hold on. I'm pulling it up. Right. So on the Undercover Billionaire show, there's a scene where Grant Cardone, essentially, he took and again, I don't know the scene. I'll go back and look at that. But essentially, I saw it on TikTok, and Grant Cardone took and he helped someone run like a marketing campaign. And so instead of asking for money, he proved that he can actually deliver. And then he asked the person for a percentage of the profits over and above what the guy was normally doing per month. And so instead of him getting like a one-time payout, he actually, what he agreed to the guy was, okay, you do whatever it was. It was like he does 100,000 a month, right? So in that particular scene, he said, all right, he wants 15% of whatever he generates over and above the amount, the guy was making. So he goes, if I generate 100,000, that's $15,000. And then Grant then asked for essentially a 10K advance check on his $15,000 of value that he created. So it just reminded me that this is the same thing that I've done with government contracts in the past, is that we went out and again, getting all this information together and showing people that we could actually go through this process of doing the due diligence research. Think about this, Elevation Allah. The companies that you're targeting know the potential. So you're coming to them with value. You just giving them that report alone is not necessarily going to hit them get the contracts. If they haven't gotten that far beforehand, they sure as hell, it would be sort of short-sighted for them to try to abandon you and just take your data. The other thing is that you don't have to give them all the data up front, right? You can give them bits and pieces of the data just to show and prove that you know what you're talking about. And then at that point, you can decide that, hey, again, just depending upon what you want to do, you could ask them to be a partner and right? And so that's what we teach in the consulting modules. But it's also, like I said, I think given the time that this whole stimulus package is out, this omnibus bill, a lot more people's ears are going to be perked up to hearing about the idea of government contracts. So for me, it's kind of like just rehatches the whole wheel of doing government contracts. Welcome, Misha Ford. So someone says you have 90 days. Would you be able to obtain $1 million contract with that time frame? No. Unfortunately, the government contract is slow, methodical. You can't really get it's we don't control when the contracts come out. So even if I were to find a contract that was coming out, right? Let's say I see a contract right now that the government released that's $1 million contract. Let's say I go find the perfect teaming partner, bring them to the table, and we bid that contract. And let's say we win the contract for $1 million. So let's say right now, today, the 28th of December, I find $1 million contract. We grab a teaming partner that matches the criteria. We bid it. We win it. There's no guarantee the government's going to award it in 90 days. So the unfortunate thing about government contracts is we have no control over when they're going to make the award or when the future contract's going to come out. So that's why I can't guarantee you, right, that we could get $1 million contract in 90 days, because even if we won a contract today, even if I won a contract tomorrow, there's no guarantee that they're going to make the award, right, in 90 days, even if I was the lowest bidder and all this stuff, because there's a process that has to go through, and maybe they put out the solicitation right before the funding was approved, and maybe the funding's not approved. So that's the whole point of this whole $1.7 trillion package, is because a lot of entities have been waiting on this money to be approved. And now that this money is approved, you'll see more contracts start to kind of like start dropping out of air. Justin, that's good. What different types of compensation do you have used for selling this information? So I've had students, it's funny, that's a good question, Justin. I've had students that paid to get companies registered. I've had students get paid to just do this research for them. So someone paid them, hey, can you pull up like a buyer's list? We've had students that got paid to sell the buyer's list. And then the ultimate, right, is just students getting paid to essentially take this information and call on behalf of the companies, right? And so the companies will pay you to essentially call these agencies and set up meetings with them on behalf, like an extension of their business development arm. So those are 3 ways that I've seen people get paid with this information. Yep. Please don't delete this video. I have to add to my library. I'm going to review it later. No problem. We'll do. See, look, Gilbert just said, I received a cancellation notice by a contract that I just bid on. So that happens all the time. So that's why it's very difficult for me to say when you're going to get that $1 million contract, because the government may decide that they, for example, does anybody see what happened with Title 42? Anybody know about Title 42? So again, I know people that were waiting for Biden to overturn Title 42. And if he was to overturn Title 42, then that would affect ICE and Homeland Security Department. And so then there'll be money thrown at, right, addressing those issues. And by the way, there's money still thrown in here in terms of infrastructure. Look, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a really clean example right now. So we've got one of our students that does food services. And essentially, he does food services. Take this off. He does food services for Homeland Security. And here, check this out, right? The government's going to be increasing spending. It says major disaster response recovery, but hold on, let's get down to here. Where is it at? I saw it. All right, Custom Border Patrol. So here we go. 16 billion for CBP, 1.8 billion above 2022. So they're throwing another 2 billion over above what they did before. But check this out. 6 million caregiver service, 24 million suicide prevention workforce wellness centers, 10 million for additional capability procurement directorate. Where is it at? 687 million for operate sustain current border technology programs, 31 million body worn cameras, video recording equipment for border patrol stations, 230 million for border technology, 69 million for downstream inspection services. Where was it at? I saw in there was money for actual like doing pipeline cybersecurity. FEMA got their budget increase. 20 billion disaster response. 3 billion federal assistance. I saw it in here. Maybe I read too fast. But yeah, I saw it in there where they're doing more work down at the border. 56 million for Office of Health Security, improved guidance and oversight related to health of workforce and migrants in custody. I had it on here. I can't see it now. I'm going too fast. But essentially, right, this is, again, Homeland Security, 85 billion in discretionary resources, 83 billion for non-defense programs, and 3 billion for defense-related programs, 20 billion for major disaster response. So again, when we look at spending, we can't just focus on defense spending because they got here 83 billion in non-defense programs, and then 20 billion in disaster recovery and response activities. So I look at the whole pie, not just a little bit of piece of the pie. All right, 93 people watching. I hope 93 people hit the like button. All right, longtime fan, Master Auto Piece Detailing. Malcolm Dixon, welcome. That's right, Title 42, immigration. Any guidance on what should be charged for services where you don't have a profit override? It's interesting. So I actually tweeted about this recently, and I said, for these reports, it just depends on the level of detail that you provide. For doing this research, I've seen people charge anywhere from $500 to $5,000. Hope that answers the question. Where can I find this list? What list are you looking for specifically? Where just hopped on. Where do we find a document referencing with exact amounts budgeted? Okay. I'll get you. There you go. Here's the list. All right. What else? I'm signing off. I hope this helps. Sorry if you're just signing on. Essentially, I'll recap real quick for those people that just came on. So if I was starting out, no money, no experience, what would I do? And we went through it. Step number one, I'd head over here. Let me make this big for everyone out there. All right. So step number one, I'd head over to DSBS search, and I look for companies who had expired SAM registrations, old outdated profiles, or expired certifications. Why? Because those companies have indicated an interest in wanting to do business with the government. However, because of whatever reasons, they've either tried it and didn't work, or they tried it and maybe they're no longer doing it because someone left or the person in charge left, or they lost that expertise in-house. So that's the first thing I do. The second thing I would do is I head over to FPDS, right? I cross-reference whether or not they've won contracts and what type of contracts they've won in the past. And the reason why I do that is because I want to look for relevant contract opportunities for them. And I also want to determine their industry sector, the region they like working in. And based on the projects in the past, I can start to build up a buyer's list, right? So then the third thing I want to do is essentially start working on their buyer's list, finding out who are the departments, but most specifically the contracting agencies and the contracting offices here, right, that are buying the services that this particular companies want sold to the government. And so from there, once you have the contracting office name that you see on the screen, you can get the office name, their location, their website, and you get the points of contact for people who are essentially doing giving out the contracts, making the awards, and the people that you should be talking to work with that particular contracting office, because that's where they're cutting the checks from. And then after I've done that, and again, at this point, you have information that's essentially valuable that you can sell. And so after I've done that, if I want to go a step further, I will research, because now that I know the contracting offices that are buying this stuff, I can now find out current contracts, past contracts, and future contracts. And so an example I gave was here at GSA Acquisition Gateway. I looked at upcoming opportunities, upcoming forecast projects. We went to SAM.gov, and you can look at existing contracts or past contracts, right? And so now you have built up this essentially plethora of information that to these companies that you've initially researched is extremely valuable. And so now once you see that, you can then cross-reference here to the spending bills, and you can see where the government's spending money, where they've increased their spending. And now you can have a conversation with those companies. And so examples of things that I would say would be like, hey, my name is Eric. I was browsing through current federal opportunities. I noticed that something fits in your past contracts. Would you like to jumpstart your federal business segment again, because this opportunity looks perfect for you? There's a $400K opportunity in West Point, Chicago, that's cleaning. I know if you've done cleaning bids in the past. Are you still in the IT space, cybersecurity space, real estate space, etc.? Do you have anyone that's actively looking for opportunities for your company? Do you have a sales guy? Are you aware of the new $1.7 trillion package? Are you aware that the government just improved $2 billion for your particular industry sector and another $500 million for your region? Things like that, I would start the conversation and say. And given the current situation with inflation, looming real estate crisis, car dealership crisis, and an increase in you got the supply chain, right? When you add all that together, no one's going to tell you no, they don't want to take your call. They want to talk about opportunities to increase their revenue source. So this is ideal for those people because, like I said, I'm in a market, and you guys that are watching me, you're in a market where regardless of what's going on, everything is crashing and burning around us. If the real estate market drops, if the, again, people are not buying strip malls, the malls are empty. I've got all these stores can't lease their office space. So the people who own the real estate developers can't lease spaces. You see what's happening with like Zillow and some of these guys who bought all this residential property. They're trying to rent it. The car dealerships are losing money on cars, but the government just spent, or just getting ready to pass. And again, any day now, Biden's going to sign this $1.7 trillion package. So they're turning up the faucets while everybody else is essentially now at a slow drip, if any drip at all. So again, I want to say that because to me, when this gets ready to get signed, there's going to be a lot of people sitting up and going, how do I do this government contract thing? And so for me, I would say where all of us are just one obstacle away. Does that make sense? Right here below, govconeric.com/join. We've got a couple days left before you can sign up for this next cohort. Last day, December 31st. All right. Stone and Parker, I hope that helped to recap what we just discussed in the last hour. All right, good folks. I love everybody out here. Happy holidays to you and your families. Happy New Year's. I more than likely won't see you. But you can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me TikTok, Twitter. I'm spending a lot more time on Twitter. And so you'll see me posting a lot of this kind of content on Twitter, just in different formats. So we're trying to repurpose this information to help folks out there. That's why I took it off of LinkedIn, because I felt as though I wanted you guys to have this information before the LinkedIn folks. So that way they would be your target partners, clients, consultants as well. So looking forward to it. I've got more information on government contracts to come. We've got a lot of podcast folks in here. Yes. For this information, people charge anywhere between $500 to $5,000, just depending upon how intensive your research is, right? Obviously, if you just give them a top 10 list that comes off the first database, and if it takes you, I don't know, an hour to get it, it's probably worth $500. If it takes you 5 hours to get it, it's probably worth $5,000, right? Just because you're going to have deep level insight. So again, thank you, everyone. Happy New Year to all of you. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and we'll see you next year, 2023.